cause everything around me green. Get the money, dollar bill, yo.
What's up, guys? This is going to be my Blackguard Assassin Theorycrafting video. Had a few of you guys wondering what I was doing to be able to pull off the crazy stuff like killing 8 ward tribes all at once without taking any damage, and just crazy tankiness on the assassin. People were wondering how I was pulling that off. So here's my video on it. Disclaimer, none of this is perfect. This is just stuff that I've thought of. I'm sure someone has thought of something better. I'm sure that I'm missing out on something that's a no-brainer, but this is kind of what I've thought up so far in my theory crafting. So let's start off with the race. Why am I a Nathari? Well, Nathari Assassin has quite a few things working for it, particularly Nathari Blackguard. So number one that's really nice, and this is a relatively new change, and that is that you have 4 passives. This was kind of an undocumented change. I don't remember it being announced. I just made an Nathari one day, and I'm like, what? They have 4 passives? So Nathari have 4 passives, and humans have 4 passives. They're the only two in the game that have that, and humans can't be assassins, so 4 passives is absolutely awesome. Number 2 that's awesome for the Blackguard is that the Nathari has 3% built-in anti-crit. Anti-crit is one of the best stats in the game. It's pretty overpowered, I'm not gonna lie. It's just a 6 stat. Critical hits in this game hit very hard, so if you have a chance to hit, to not get hit with them, it's a really big deal. So this 3% combined with the anti-crit gear, which is meta, combined with the anti-crit talents that you get, which we'll get into later, really adds up to a crazy amount of anti-crit. And having all of that stuff with some training, you're looking at like 43% anti-crit, pretty easy. So that's nice. What else is great about Nathari? You have Call Flames. Now, I personally am not using Call Flames on my bar right now because I'm using Elementalist and I don't need 2 severe burns. Honestly, if I had the spot, I would double up, but I just don't have the room for it. But this is great if you're running not Elementalist. It's great. It's an 8 meter, 360 degree severe burn. 8 meters anyway, and 8 meters is a lot farther than 8 meters used to be because melee range got shortened. Pretty big deal. And that synergizes very well with the lifesteal, with other things you got going on with this build. It's a great power. I already have a really nice severe burn on my bar, so I'm not using it. But if I wasn't using Elementalist, I would absolutely be using it. What else? The dodge. The Nathari dodge is sick. There's really no getting around it. Boot scooting around with your flame craziness is just badass. And I believe, let's wait for it to regen. I believe you can now dodge in the air, so we'll test this out real quick. Let's see if you can actually let me find something to dodge to here. Let's see if it'll let me jump the gap to like this stairway or something. Well, I fucked that up. Let's edit that. Let's actually, we don't need to edit that. Okay, so you can. So you can do the dodge midair, which is something that not every race can do. If you have a dodge roll, I believe you cannot dodge midair. So we'll do it one more time here. Come on, dodge. Now it is a slower charge time. That is the downside, but for the most part, it's just better. Yeah, so you can dodge midair. So you're one of the few races that has that. Faye can do it. Ganeshan can do it. I guess Wood Elf can do it too. But not everybody can, so that's kind of nice. So if somebody's being cheeky and is on top of a ledge and you have to jump that ledge but you can't quite make the jump dodge, boom, you made it, right? So that more mobility, it's nice. So Nathari is pretty sick. Added bonus of Nathari. So the funny thing is that Ace made all of these badass Nathari chain sets. Like this, in my opinion, is one of the coolest armor sets in the game. You're like some crazy weird dragon chainmail thing. I bet a lot of you guys have been playing Crowfall since release and haven't seen this armor, because Nathari Blackguard Assassins are the only time you will see this armor, because Nathari don't wear chain outside of Blackguards, because they can only be Confessors, which wear leather plate, and Templars, which wear plate. So this Nathari mail set is kind of a Blackguard exclusive, and I think it looks pretty sick. The female version is kind of just looks like the Confessors, but I really dig the male version of the armor. So let's get into the stats. So my stats right now aren't optimal because I don't have my jewelry on this character. My jewelry is on my duelist, but I would have 50% crit, which is the crit cap right now. So I go full dex, get that 50% crit cap, and then I start slamming points into Constitution. Is this the best thing to do? I'm not sure, but I think it's not a half bad idea based off of the way the mechanics of this class work. So you definitely want to get the crit cap because crit cap is awesome. But the reason why I started slamming points into Constitution is because, first of all, you're playing this brawler character, right? You need to have higher health because you don't just want to get insta-gibbed and not be able to be healed, right? So that's one thing, very obvious. Another thing is that with this build, you are putting up barriers on yourself constantly with Kidney Shot, and barriers scale with Constitution. Another thing you want. Number 3, you have lifesteal with the Blackguard Assassin. You have a lot of lifesteal, so a higher health pool means more lifesteal. You want the higher health pool is, the more you're likely going to benefit from that lifesteal. Number 4, I run sturdy, so higher health pool means I'm in the sturdy range more often. I'm just trying to think of things off the top of my head. Barrier, lifesteal, sturdy. That's really about it. But those are pretty nice, and there's really not any other stats that are that great. When I hit the crit cap, which I do with my jewelry on, at that point I'm basically not exactly wasting points by putting them in a dex, but I'm not fully benefiting from dex because my crit can't go above 50. Strength hardly gives you any damage bonus. It's kind of lame. Int, again, not really that great. So you just really don't have that many other great choices for this. So I think Con is a pretty decent choice considering your role and considering your mechanics. So that's that. Again, this is part of the video where I don't know if that's the right choice. Maybe I'm a dumbass and the AP that you get from Dex outweighs everything by far, and I'm stupid for doing that. I'm not sure. I need somebody to crunch the numbers on that. It's kind of hard to put a value on it. So now we got that done. Let's get into the disciplines. So I'm running Elementalist and Black Mask. Elementalist is just straight up disgusting. The Firewall skill is amazing. It does a ton of damage. It spreads your poisons, which we'll get into that in a minute. Firewall has a lot of crazy... It does so many crazy things that people wouldn't think it does. It's a great ability. I've talked about this in the past. So Firewall, sick damage, sick added benefits that it does. Conduction is a pretty decent passive if you don't have access to leadership, which we'll get into in a minute. And the defensives are just fantastic. The defensives that you get from Elementalist are nice. It's all elemental damage, which is something that you're naturally a little bit weaker to. So the Blackguard Assassin does very well against physical, not as well against elemental. But if you have those two powers on your bar, which I do, all of a sudden you're pretty damn tanky against elemental damage as well. So it's just a really solid discipline. Is this mandatory? No. I mean, I don't think Blackguard has really any mandatory discs. I am a big sucker for Black Mask. I always have been. I think it's just a sick discipline. I know I feel like I'm in the minority with this. A lot of people just don't like having to keep up that Call Darkness buff. But dude, it synergizes so well with this build. So why does it synergize so well with this build? Let's get into the talents real quick. We'll come back to this, but your backstab has 30% less cooldown. So it's guaranteeing you those backstabs frequently. And you'll see when I get into the combat rotation and the damage part of the video, how frequently I'm putting out those backstabs. And it just is not practical to be able to pull that off if you're actually having to get behind somebody all the time. It's impossible. I'm just going to say it. It's very hard to consistently do that. So Black Mask just gives you that consistency in your backstabs. And I think it's so good that even if you look at the discipline, the damage bonus piercing, I don't even use piercing. I use axes. You have to use axes for Blackguard because of the capstone, which gives you 10% more slashing damage bonus. So you don't want to use daggers. That's the thing. And also you get mail. I didn't cover that, but you get mail armor as well. So Black Mask is pretty sick. Really the only thing I care about on Black Mask is Call Darkness. That's really it. I think it's such a good ability that I think it's worth taking that, even though the stats don't make sense. And the Miners, Spirit Whip, Overwhelming Odds, Sturdy. We'll get to that when we actually get to the passives, but I actually do run all those passives. So, yeah. What else on my list here? Let's get into the actual... Okay, so we're already in the talent trees. Let's talk about some of the I'm going to zoom out and show you my talents. I'm just going to pan it really slowly. I'm not going to go over all these because many of these, if you've played the Assassin, are gimmies. Like, they're pretty obvious choices. One thing I did not take Cloaked in Shadow. This is kind of probably a weird thing because all your Assassin senses are like, oh, get that, right? It's 1 point. It's pretty good. The thing about the Blackguard is that stealth is not that important to the Blackguard. Stealth is a utility and really a way to start a fight. Like, if you're going to engage as a Blackguard and it's like a siege situation where you've got a front line here and a front line here, stealth is really only good so you can bridge that gap between the front line and front line without getting shot by rangers, for example. Whereas a knight has got to, you know, run across the field and he's getting shot by range, and by the time he gets there, he's already taking a good bit of damage. The good thing about the Blackguard is you can sort of just stealth that way, and then it's like, surprise, I'm here, and then your team runs in with you, and you don't take that unnecessary range poke damage. That's really the only thing stealth is good for in a combat sense. Obviously, you've got the utility, but I mean, if you take this talent, great. It'll help you. I don't think you're not bad for taking it, but I just don't think it's that great. So I think I ended up getting extra physical resist instead with that extra point. Same thing goes with Spirit Dart. Spirit Dart's just kind of lame. The only reason I took it is because if somebody's running away from you, it's nice to have that little ranged ability. A weakness of the spec is getting kited, especially with 3-meter melee range. So if somebody's swaps into their harvesting tray and you hit them with a dizzy and they're running away and you can't bridge that gap, you can ult Spirit Dart, boom, dizzy down. I've done it before. That's really the only reason I took it. Again, not that great. But let's get into the actual talents that are awesome. So things that are Blackguard specific that are dope. So number one, that first talent, agile footwork, 15% more anti-crit. It's disgustingly good. That is just disgustingly amazing. Awesome. Kidney shot cooldown reduction. This is the bread and butter of the Blackguard damage. You have 30% less cooldown on backstab and kidney shot. It's dope. Also, kidney shot gives you a barrier with payback. So your kidney shots give you a barrier, and also they heal you if you take this talent, the Schadenfreude. I'm sure I said that wrong, but you get an extra, what is that, 4.5% health on top of your stun, on top of your barrier. It starts to add up when that cooldown is very low. What is it? I want to say it's like 12 or 13 seconds. Let's look real quick. It's really low, and it's actually going to be lower if let's put it in the optimal situation with the weapon finesse. So yeah, 13 seconds. Actually, a little less than 13 seconds. So that adds up to a good bit of healing and a good bit of barrier. You see it put a barrier on me right there. So yeah, let's get back to the talents here. Kidney shot barrier, kidney shot heal, less cooldown, backstab. Your backstab, 30% less cooldown as well. Synergizes very well with Black Mask, give you that consistency. And the big daddy, Poison Paradise. Poison Paradise right here. 8% more lifesteal whenever you have a nature toxin or poison toxin equipped. Now, I know I just read that out loud, but there's so many people that do this. I'm going to say it anyway. For this talent to work, you need to have a nature or poison toxin equipped. I know so many people pick up this talent and they just have noob gear and they're testing and whatever, and they're like, "Oh, I'm not getting any lifesteal." You got to have it equipped. I made that mistake. You got to have a poison equipped, the proper poison equipped for that to work. And yeah, so you'll see right now. So I don't have the lifesteal bonus when I'm not in combat stance, but let's go into combat stance real quick, and you see, boom, I have the 8% lifesteal bonus. So that is cool. What else do we have? On my list here, stealth. Okay, let's get into one thing real quick, and that is with the passive training. So this is a very rare example of where the passive training gives you something that is actually pretty fucking sick for a class. Now, most of the passive training is you get a little bit of stats here, a little bit of stats there, helps your crafting, helps your harvesting, and it's not really that great. But this is an example of something that is, and that is the command tree for specifically and only the Blackguard is this good for. So if you have the leadership training, which I do, you can get an extra 4.5% lifesteal on top of the 8% that you have. meaning that you're at 12.5% lifesteal total. Stacks additively. Now this says that it's 15%. It's actually only 4.5%. It got nerfed down at some point. They just never updated the tooltip. So running leadership as a Blackguard Assassin is a big play. It is a fucking high value thing to do, because not only are you getting the extra lifesteal, which is really good, but you're also getting these little minor buffs like 2%. What is this? I think it's like 2% more crit damage, 2% more crit chance, some thorns damage if somebody's running thorns, and 25 AP. Now that stuff, it's not really that big for an individual player, right? But for an entire group, you're giving that to you and 4 other guys. That's a pretty high value play, along with the lifesteal that you personally highly benefit from. So Blackguard is, I believe, the only spec in the game that has a lifesteal thing that can constantly be up. In fact, I think they're one of the only specs in the game that has consistent lifesteal of any kind, really. Ranger has it on their ult, and I really can't think of anybody else that really gets it. I might be missing something, but I really can't think of anybody else that really gets lifesteal other than Rangers and Blackguard Assassins. And Blackguard Assassins have it all of the time, which makes this 4.5% talent exceptionally good. This is not good for anybody else really other than Blackguards. Rangers benefited from a little bit here and there, but Assassins get it all the time because they're the only ones with something like Poison Paradise. So wanted to get that out of the way. Now, if you don't have that, is that the end of the world? No. Is that, I believe, the best choice if you have it available? If you're running a 5v5 group comp, like if you're running you and 4 other guys, I think it's absolutely just an amazing choice, because it also buffs your group members as well with that little bit of stats, but all that adds up and 4 other people, you know? But if you don't have access to that and you want to run the same build, I have Conduction is pretty good too. The 150 AP whenever you get hit by any sort of elemental damage, Druid, Confessor, Ranger with ice arrows or whatever, you basically have that up all the time. If it's a fight, man, and people running Elementalist too, man, it's basically 150 AP all the time. So not the end of the world if you don't have it. Now, sorry, I went off on a tangent about that. So, and where that actually shows up, if you run leadership, it'll show up in your defenses, and that'll show up in your lifesteal. So let's go into combat stance real quick again. So I have 8% lifesteal. The leadership will show up as lifesteal bonus, and for the leadership to work, you have to be the leader of the party. So I don't have anybody in my group right now, so I'm not getting any benefit. But if I was to invite somebody, it would show up extra 4.5% on top of what I got. So let's get into abilities, passives. Okay, the abilities. Abilities and passives. So I'm running Way of the Leader, which is what I just got done talking about. Sturdy. Sturdy is just disgusting. It's amazing. It's one of the best. It is probably the best discipline in the game. You take 33% health reduction loss. So this isn't technically 33% less damage because it doesn't, which is good. You don't want it to be that because your final mitigation, right? Let's say you're a knight, right? You've got mitigation cap, you're at 50%. If it was 30% less damage taken, you would get 0 benefit. But since it's this weird health loss thing, it just stacks with this final mitigation. So that's why it's worded that way and not just damage reduction overall like this one is, like Overwhelming Odds is. But essentially, roughly 33% less damage taken when you're above 80% health. It's really good. Really, really, really good. Overwhelming Odds, 7%. More resistances when there are 3 people within 10 meters. That does stack with this final mitigation, so you'll see this will go up to math is hard, but you're going to see it go up. Well, okay, there we go. It takes a second. Yeah, so that went up, and now if we leave this stance, it should go down. Yeah, okay, so cool. What next? Overwhelming Odds and Spirit Whip. So Spirit Whip, this is low-key something is disgusting that a lot of people sleep on it, because for most classes and most situations, this is like the Blackguard Assassin's theme, is that it's got some crazy shit that's utilizing things that no one thinks that's not good for most of the population. You know, leadership, not really good for anybody else but Blackguards, but it's sick for Blackguards. Spirit Whip, typically not very good for anybody else, but it's sick for Blackguards. Why is this sick? So, first of all, the nature of the Blackguard Assassin is you're kind of a brawler in fighting a bunch of melee, fighting a bunch of other people in clumps. You know, that's the nature of the class. You want to be in there fighting and taking damage and just being that guy in the thick of things. So you're going to get benefit there. Number two is sick. So your Blackguard Assassin, one of your primary damage sources is your poison, and you want to be using, in my opinion, Nature Toxin, or you're doing it wrong. Nature Toxin essentially does the same damage as Poison Toxin, but in half the duration. So you need to apply it more frequently, but it does more damage, damage per second. So anyway, why Spirit Whip's so good? So let's show you. So spoiler alert, it procs your poison. So watch this. I'm gonna attack this guy. Let's see how long it takes for it to proc a poison. So I'm not attacking that third dummy over there. All right, should it proc? Yeah, okay, so look at that. My Spirit Whip shot over from that to that. Oh, it procced it on this one too, so I wasn't even attacking this dummy, and it's procced my poison that's hitting for 200 and what? Let's see. Oh, well, it just went away. I'll show you again. All right, should have procced. Let's see, I think it's going to tick for like 250 or something. 324. It procced a 324 poison on somebody that I wasn't even attacking. So, yes, that is sick. So, that's unbelievably good. Duh. So that's why I use Spirit Whip. Also, the damage, you do quite a bit of left clicking as an assassin. Even though this build is very backstab heavy and fairly ability heavy compared to a lot of other things in this game, since you attack so fast, you're still doing quite a bit of left click damage. So that little bit of damage, you know, even though I'm only hitting for like 112s and whatever, 206, 184, 73, and that third one's getting hit for like 70s and 50s and 60s and 29s. You know, it's not, the damage it does is not really that great, but it adds up. You know, it's free damage, whatever, right? So, yeah, that's all the passives done. And that poison proc is just amazing. So let's get into the actual abilities. Kidney Shot, absolutely want to run this. You get barriers from it. Backstab, want to run this. Big damage. You're using Black Mask, or at least in my case, I'm using Black Mask. Nice damage. If I wasn't using Black Mask, I'm not sure if I'd use this, because getting consistent backstabs in an actual fight is pretty rough. And if you miss the backstab, it's absolutely worth not doing. Like, if you hit a backstab on somebody in the front, it is not even worth using that ability. So if I wasn't using Black Mask, I'm not even sure I'd have this ability on my bar, but since I am, and it's really, really good. In the zone, this is another thing a lot of assassins don't use, but since I'm using Black Mask, this gives me 10%, let's see, let me read it right, 20% more power efficiency, and increase your hit from behind. Yeah, hit from behind damage by 10%. I thought I was reading that wrong. So basically, if I have Black Mask up and in the zone up, I'm essentially doing 10% more damage with all the time, because with Call Darkness up, it says I'm behind you no matter what. So I'm getting 100% benefit from this. And what In the Zone does is it's going to increase my left click damage. So what power efficiency does is it increases your, if you're an assassin or a Templar or a duelist, is it increases your left click damage and also reduces your cooldown. So when I have In the Zone up, my 30% backstab cooldown reduction is even more than that. So the cooldown gets really, really low, like super low, and you'll see that when I actually get into the combat. So that In the Zone, I think, is absolutely worth running. Now, this is where things, I think, get a little weird. I'm used to always having Diffusion on my bar, and Diffusion would normally go in my number 4 slot, but Diffusion does not do damage with a Poison Toxin. With this Poison Toxin, when I do a 5-point Diffusion, all it does is spread my poisons out to other targets. That's the main effect. Now, I personally don't think that is needed with this build, because I have so many other things applying poisons. That Spirit Whip is shooting poisons everywhere. My Firewall, by the way, another thing that's crazy about Firewall, it procs your poisons. So, you know, I can have a Firewall out, set it down, forget about it, the fight can move away, somebody runs through it, it procs my poison on them, right? So there are so many other things that are proccing my poisons that I don't think it's really worthwhile for the diffusion to do it. And a lot of the diffusion targets that would be getting hit with a poison would be getting hit with it with a spirit whip anyway. So there's just a good chance that it's too much. It's overkill. It's not really needed, and I can use those combo points and that global cooldown time on other abilities instead. So that's my thinking on not taking it. There is an argument for taking it even outside of that. So poisons, the thing with the poison toxin is that you have to constantly be reapplying it. It doesn't last very long, so you constantly want to reapply it on people all the time, and you want to have a high toxin percentage application chance. You want that to be high. Now, diffusion, one thing it does is it increases your chance to apply toxins by 20%. And if you do a 5-point diffusion, it lasts, I want to say like 17 seconds or something like that. It lasts a while. So keeping that buff up, there's an argument to be made that maybe it is worth using. Even if you're not spreading the poisons, just having that higher application chance might make it worth it. I don't know. My thoughts seemed like overkill, but it might be worth using still. I don't know. But instead of that, I run Reflect Elements, reflects the fire damage back at them, or reflects any elemental damage, reflects any elemental damage back at them for my weapon damage, and increases my elemental resistance. So, I don't know. I think it's pretty solid. Call Darkness, duh. Call Darkness comes from Black Mask. You get free backstabs, free behind damage. Synergizes very well with this power, which gives you 10% more from behind damage. This power says you're always behind them, no matter what, even if you're not. Firewall, my baby. It's just a sick ability. It's dope. Disengage. Obviously, this is very good for getting away from fights, but it's also a good mobility tool. Let's say, I'm fighting this target dummy, and oh my god, he blinked that way, right? Disengage, boom, you're back, right? So, disengage, pretty solid. With the way this spec plays, I don't know if it's absolutely mandatory. Like, you probably could run something else there. Since this is like a big in-your-face build, whatever, you're not really going to be chasing down people, ganking people with this build. At least I'm not planning on doing that. So maybe this isn't a mandatory power, but mobility is always nice. And there was really nothing else that I absolutely want to have, so I'm leaving it on. And Elemental Devour, this comes from Elementalist as well. This is just sick. It's disgustingly good. If you get hit for 100 elemental damage with this up, you get healed for 125. Can't beat that, man. There's a lot of elemental damage in the game. A lot of people using Firewall. A lot of archers using elemental arrows because people are using Scarecrow. You got Confessors. You got Druids. They're a little rare. But Frostweavers, when they come in the game, I mean, there's going to be a lot of those guys running around. So it's just solid power, especially considering magic damage is kind of one of your natural weaknesses as a Blackguard. So those are the powers I run. Now, let's get into the combat and my theory behind the combat. So, back to the abilities again. So, Kidney Shot, in my opinion, is priority number 1. You want to get that barrier up on yourself as soon as possible. I don't know if this is confirmed to be the case, but from what I've seen, barriers now have a new function where if I have a barrier up for 500 on myself, and I get hit for a 2500 neck breaker, all that disappears is that 500 barrier. The barrier basically has to be completely destroyed before you start digging into the health pool. I believe, now do not quote me on this, I could be 100% wrong. It did not used to be like that, but after looking at some footage and after hearing somebody else say it, I think that's what has happened. So if you have a barrier for like 100 HP, or if you have like a 1 HP barrier and get hit for 5k, the only thing that goes away is that 1 HP barrier. At least that's from what I understand. And even if that's not the case, I would still always do the Kidney Shot first, because it's CC, and while CC is not super valuable right now, it's going to be in future patches, and it's still, they still have to get out of it. They still have to retaliate. And the barrier is nice. So I think it's absolutely worth using that as your number 1 priority. Number 2 priority in terms of combo points, I try to get Call Darkness up as soon as possible, because I want to start getting that backstab damage as soon as possible, that consistent backstab damage. Then I do In the Zone. Now, some people might say In the Zone, we better do that first because In the Zone reduces the cooldown of your backstab, but I'm of the belief that little second that you save on In the Zone on your backstab, you're better off just getting that backstab out the door, even if you do have to wait on the cooldown, right? So in the zone will reduce your cooldowns, will make your backstabs faster, but I still think it's better to get Call of Darkness up and just start backstabbing right away, and then build up to the end of the zone, and then you're good, right? So yeah, then once you have both of those buffs up, you're rocking and rolling, man. You are starting to really do some serious damage. And then without diffusion, so one of the nice things about not running diffusion, right, is that you end up in a situation where you've got 5 combo points, but you're doing optimal damage and you've got both your buffs up. So the second your kidney shot comes off cooldown, you can just use it, like just whatever. Or the second you lose the Call of Darkness buff, you've got 5 combo points and boom, you use it. Since you don't have a spender, since this isn't Cutthroat, you know, on Cutthroat Assassin, you always want, you know, if you're at 5 combo points and you're using an attack that's not a spender, you're doing it wrong. That is not the case with Blackguard. With Blackguard, if you've got 5 combo points and you got your buffs up, you can just hang out there. You can do your backstabs and your left mouse buttons, and as soon as something drops off, boom, put it right back up. So you'll notice that when I start doing my rotation. Firewall. Firewall, I should say, is actually my number 1 priority. Firewall is just so sick that it does so much damage, you just want to throw that thing down. It's that good. Just whatever the situation, your house is on fire, you know, the dog ran away, Firewall is the answer. It's just that good. But the main thing is getting those buffs up. So let's do a little rotation here on the combat dummy. And the damage, so one thing I'll say about this is that the damage is very deceptive. Now I would use the DPS meter thing that Amaranth made, but it actually bugs out. So the assassin has so many interactions with, since you do so many hits all at once, and you've got lifesteal, and there's going to be a crazy amount of numbers popping up on the screen. So it actually like breaks the combat, it breaks the DPS tester, and also you can't really see how much damage I'm doing unless you really slow it down, because you're going to see like 1,200 backstabs get hidden by all these little poison procs and fire procs and all these other little things, because the combat text actually just can't handle all the shit going on, because that's how crazy this spec is. So let's run through this. All right, so I got 4 combo points. So let's put down the Firewall, build up to the 5-point kidney, boom, 5-point kidney. Let's build up to the Call of Darkness. So Call of Darkness, backstab. Now it's time to build up to In the Zone. In the Zone, look at the backstab cooldown. Look at this backstab cooldown. So short. Boom, backstab, boom, backstab. Now my Call of Darkness is getting ready to fall off in 3 seconds. So 3, 2, full kidney shot. Now I need to wait, put down the Firewall again, reapply Call of Darkness. Boom, now we own. Now we own. Boom, backstab. Boom, backstab. Look at the cooldown on this fucking backstab. It's insane. Full kidney again. Boom, backstab. Call of Darkness is getting ready to fall off again. Boom. Let's see, I've got 5 combo points, didn't spend it. Reapply the Call of Darkness immediately. One of the upsides of not using diffusion, right, is that you can reapply that immediately. So it's a very hectic playstyle. I'm trying to keep track of all this shit, but basically the idea is when you have In the Zone up and Call of Darkness up, look at the fucking cooldown of this. Boom, boom, boom. You just are hitting backstabs so frequently. And you're going to have to probably slow it down to actually see the backstabs hitting, but they're hitting for like 750, 850. It's just the fly text can't really keep up with this many numbers. And also, look at the damage I'm doing to all these other target dummies at the same time, right? So, yeah, I'm trying to isolate a number here. So that was like a 700 backstab, and you're just hitting them so frequently. It's just constant. So anyway, that's kind of the theory of the Blackguard. Very hectic, but lots of AoE damage. And again, we take a look at just look at the dot damage. Like, just look at this dot damage pouring in, right? On all 3 of these. And a lot of that damage, right? It's not flashy, right? It doesn't show up as big, sexy damage, but it's absolutely there, and it matters. Like, look at these 20s and 30s. They're still pouring in. I haven't hit the fucking dummies in a long time, right? And you can reapply that damage so quickly, right? So, let's see. I probably got a poison proc on all 3 of these, right? Oh, not that one, but those 2. Oh no! See, now I have a poison proc because the Firewall proc the poison. And look at this dot damage, just free dot damage. Just whatever, man. So the main thing is that backstab. Building up to that backstab is so cool. Let's do it one more time just to give the kids a show. So here we go. Boom, Call of Darkness. Now it's time for the slow backstabs. Now when I get that In the Zone up, boom, In the Zone. Look at that, 2 seconds, dude. So fast in the back. It's like 2.5 seconds or something. You can do a 1, 2, 3 backstab. 1, Backstab, like it's up so frequently. Yeah, it's just nutty. And I'm trying to. Now they're not super sexy backstabs. Like that was like an 849 backstab if I saw. Yeah, 752 backstab, 569, 542. You know they can hit pretty hard. For that one kind of sucked. That was like a 414. But they're so frequent. They're not big dick. They're not huge cutthroat backstabs, but they're still pretty damn good. That was a 771, 892, 700 something. Yeah, so they're pretty good, but they're so frequent. They're so frequent. So Blackguard, the main thing is that it's tanky, puts up these dots. Like, look at these dots, man. Dots, 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 dots. And if you couldn't tell, I kind of like this build. So I haven't done a ton of PvP with it yet because the kind of the nature of this campaign, it just hasn't really lent itself to awesome Blackguard fights. I've done a little bit with it, but I'm very excited for it. So this is a very long-winded video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, but I hope you sort of got my theory crafting. I hope I took you into my brain for a second, and maybe it made sense. I know the combat. I know everything was fairly structured up until the combat section where I sort of went off the rails. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think. If you have any suggestions on how to make this better or anything else you want to see, let me know in the comments down below. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Use my Crowfall referral link, damn it. I'm watching you. Use it and get in the game so I can kill you. So get 5% off anything you buy. Sign up for the beta for free. What are you doing? Sign up.